Somehow your drink was already served for you.
It just shows up. It's just ready. Knows where I'm going to be. That'd be nice.
Weird how that happened, that it just knew where you were going to be. Opened and ready for you.
Mm-hmm. Rambler, Yopon Energy. This podcast sponsored by Yopon. No, Yopon is actually where they derive the caffeine from. It says it's a plant indigenous to the U.S., whatever that means. It also has limestone minerals. Not sure I need those, but the nice thing is they do contribute a part of the purchase proceeds to Texas Parks and Wildlife and American Rivers.
Heck yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
As long as we still have rivers.
All the rivers dry up. American Rivers is still getting money.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's
to
it
do
going?
what?
Yeah.
What are they even protecting? Yeah, I got Smoothie King. It's good.
Smooth?
I guess. These are a guaranteed nap for me.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why.
What do you think? Oh, I was going to say, what do you think does it?
I know what does it. I have like a weird sugar intolerance where, like on Sunday mornings, if we have donuts or something, I can't have them. Because if I do, 2 hours later, I am out cold asleep and I wake up just like sweaty.
Oh, that's not good.
That's a problem. So Smoothie King does it to me too. I know for a fact that I'm going to go home and what do we got here? 40 minutes or so after we're done here. And I'm going to pass out. It's going to be great.
Wow.
It's going to be a good nap.
Is it like bread and pasta too? Or just
No.
sugar? Oh.
And I eat pasta like crazy, like almost every night. So I don't know.
Fascinating. Okay.
I know. It's weird. Smoothie King and like donuts are the only things that really do it to me that like I know going in, I'm like, this is going to hurt coming out, but it's so good, dude. A little banana cinnamon thing with a bunch of protein.
Ooh, banana and cinnamon. Good combo.
It's like my favorite flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. For all of our listeners and watchers, diagnose Braden. What's going on with him?
Not mentally, physically. You could probably do both.
What are we disrupting today?
I want to talk about, I know we had a couple of topics that we had thought about. Do you know any high school heroes? Like people that just talk about what they did back in the day?
So I'll define it first. High school hero, as in someone who maybe 25, 35, 45 still remembers high school experiences as the best portions of their life.
Still talking about, exactly.
About them,
still talking about how awesome it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know a few of those? You ever met them?
Yep.
You ever asked them, like, what have you done lately? It's harsh.
Yeah. I don't, because I'm like, well, that's what you're fixated on. I'm not going to bring up what's going on right now. It's clearly you're not into it.
I'm sorry. That's funny. That's a good response.
What you got on it, though?
Okay. So I had an aphorism that I had written down a while back, and I was just going through aphorisms. I figured that's great things for us to discuss here. And one of them says, positive personal development means coming to grips with how much your previous self sucked. Negative personal development, the opposite.
True. Okay. Yeah. You got to identify places that lack in order to either fill them up or redirect what you're doing now. Yeah.
I don't even think you have to look back and identify them.
So this is just like general, just like...
I think it just is natural. I hate who I was in high school. Absolutely would not be friends with that kid anymore as I am today. Love the friends that I was friends with in high school, but they've all grown up too. All of us do not do a majority of the things that we would have done in high school that were just not acceptable. How do you feel about your high school self?
Oh yeah, Facebook is this magical tool that we have now that not that many generations before us would receive the benefit from, but I get constant reminders of memories of things I posted or said or how I spoke in high school, and I'm like, ugh, whoa, that was me? Glad it's not now. So yeah, how did I feel about myself in high school? I can tell you in high school, I thought I was really cool.
Heck yeah, you did.
Yeah. And right now, I probably think I'm really cool, kind of. Mm-hmm. And probably in 10 years, I'll think that this guy's really dumb and that guy's really cool. But yeah, so high school, no, not great.
Imagine looking back on those like posts and stuff from high school and being like, yeah, I was the man. Man, I wish I was as cool as I was back then. You know, like, I think that's what people do. There are definitely people that feel that way. Isn't that strange? I mean, those are the high school heroes.
Yeah. So I find it strange, but also, well, why do you think they think that those are the good times? You kind of alluded to it all.
Positive personal development versus negative personal development.
Okay.
I think that if you go through life developing habits, ideas, thoughts, versions of the world, realities, if you will. And if you go through and make very negative ones, you create a reality around yourself that you want to escape from. And what you do is you constantly look back to the past to see when times were better. On the other hand, true personal development, positive, you're always developing. Persons are always developing.
Yeah.
Positive personal development, in my mind, is any time you were forced to look back. Usually you aren't looking back. You're not a rear view mirror kind of person. But anytime you were forced to look back, you were so cringed by what existed back then that you get the feeling that we both get, right? Thinking about ourselves in high school. And the future just looks overwhelmingly positive to you. You know what I mean? You almost are looking in it. It's the direction that you're looking at that shows whether or not you're developing in a positive or negative way. Does that make sense? That was the thought behind the aphorism.
Kind of, yeah. Makes me think about if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward.
Yes. Positive, negative development.
A fixation on the past will stave off or cut off your focus on the future and moving forward too. Like for every time, if you want to say, let's make it time bound. Say you spend 30 minutes a day thinking about the past. That 30 minutes, it's like, well, did you think about how to change things to move forward too that day? If you did like 30 minutes past, 30 minutes forward, okay, maybe, I don't know if there's a balance or that's like the right system, but it's like if you spend all this time looking back and like assessing those past things and being like how great or how much they suck, but then you don't put that same amount of effort at least into the future, like that past is going to do nothing. I think.
I think you are hitting at something which it just came on my mind. It's a chicken and egg thing to think, okay, is what's happening now causing us to look back in the past or avoid the past? But maybe there's an element to this where you should be spending time looking at the past, but the way you frame it matters.
Yeah.
So we were talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy brought up this problem about writing books and how whenever you write a book and you publish it, you might 10 years down the road be such a different person that you don't even believe the things that you had said in the book 10 years ago. And that is, in my mind, good. It's almost as if you should always be looking in the past, but when you're looking in the past, you either are looking at all of the positive things and getting stuck on those and preferring to go back there rather than proceed into the future, or you're looking at all the places where you could make corrections. And the future is your opportunity to change what was wrong. You know what I mean? And I think that the way it's mindset, your mindset of looking at it matters. And I want to tie this into like, I just see all these people doing personal development courses, personal development books, personal development seminars, things like that. And I always wonder, like, how different are they from previous versions of themselves? Because it's a way to judge whether they're successful at, whether it's working, right? So the only way to judge in my mind whether or not it's working is if you don't even recognize your previous self in a negative way. You're like, I don't even know how I was that kind of person.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost a judgment to this. How do you know disruptive mind is working? Well, 5 years into it, I'm so cringe and ashamed, not because of how it, well, even because of how it looked, like everything about it. I'm so cringe and ashamed by those episodes in the first year that like, I want to remove them from YouTube, but I can't because I know that it's important to have. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a way of telling whether or not you're progressing positively or negatively. And I think that the answer is, how do you view your previous self?
Okay, I like it.
Thoughts?
I think that's a pretty good formula. To go back to the high school hero. There's occasions where, I hear people, all of their positive discussions are about things that happened 5, 10, 15 years ago, or all their positive statements about things that happened 5, 10, 15 years ago. And they love that person more than they do their current one.
All of their anxiety, concern, and fear is about what's happening in the next 5, 10, 15 months or days.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And they sit there and get hammered while they talk about it or whatever, and then they wonder why the next 5, 10, 15 days is just such a chore to them.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. Dialogue that hits my head most of the time is like the question you asked me, like if I ever ask, what have you done lately? What have you done lately that you like? What are you excited about now?
Mm-hmm.
What are you excited about happening in 6 months or a year?
Mm-hmm.
Those usually go in my head, but I don't ask them out loud because I'm like, this is clearly the best moment of your day.
It is.
And so I'm going to let you have it. But
I'll sit here and listen to how awesome, whatever prom was or whatever, and how great of a time you had.
Mm-hmm.
What about those questions like for you? Like, are those, so let's talk about the other direction, people who are in a positive personal development pipeline. Do you think they can always answer those questions? What are you looking forward to in a week? What are you looking forward to in a year? What are you looking forward to?
I think they're more excited to talk about them, even if they don't have the answers offhand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're excited by the prompt to even think about it.
Because they've already thought about it. They're excited to share it. Like, let's talk about goal setting, man. That's the simplest like personal development thing that I usually hate. I'm always like, forget goals. Like, that's like a waste of time to sit around and think about them.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's not. Maybe it's an opportunity to look at the future in a positive way. So that then eventually you can look back at your past and say, wow, I was so far behind.
Steve Scanlon, Jimmy talks about him often. He was here at the church. His, if you can name it, you can tame it statement probably applies to goals just as much as it does with sin or disorders or all the problems. Like, if you can like at least name your goal, visualize it, like give it some definition, probably helps you wrangle it in a little better.
Describe that. Describe what he talks about with.
If you name it, you can tame it. So it's like, well, I have anxiety. Well, what do you have anxiety about? Everything. Everything's not really naming what you have anxiety about. You're like, oh, I have anxiety about sending these 3 emails this afternoon because like if one of them goes bad, like my boss could fire me. Something like that. It's like, oh, now you've named that situation. It's like, well, now we deal with it. Will your boss fire you over this email? Are you going to do any better by sitting here for the next 4 hours thinking about that email and then sending it? Or if you sent it now, is whatever's going to happen anyway? It's like, now we can address it by you giving it some definition and by really naming it and not just giving it some, I like the word ethereal because I think it means something about like spacey and mystical, but it's like, it's not.
Interesting.
So
I don't think I know anything about his name it, tame it idea. He didn't talk about that when he was here, at least not
Oh, no.
to the big group.
That was on the Monday after. Okay, yeah.
That's an interesting concept, though, because
Vision boards.
vision boards.
I mean, come on. There's all sorts of, a lot of people that lead corporations and businesses, like in groups or as individuals, they set people down. They're like, what do you want out of your job? What do you want from the next 6 months in your like, they ask people those questions.
Do you believe everybody's capable of envisioning futures and concepts like that?
Capable? Yeah. How much do they desire to? How much have they practiced it? How poor might they be at the skill? Yeah, that varies a lot. But capable? Yeah. If you got a brain, like, imagination happens at some level. How great you are at using it, quite debatable, and that's a broad spectrum.
I always thought, and I always limited it to people's, this is going to sound terrible, literally their vocabulary. Like the reading level and vocabulary was what it was limited to. In the sense of, how can I paint a picture of what my life, exactly what my life is going, I'll paint you the picture, I have painted the picture in my mind of what my life is going to look like in 3 years. In 3 years, I will have upwards of a $5 million home paid off in cash on a river somewhere. And I will have about 3 kids by that time. And our first kid will be ready to go to preschool or some sort of like, before kindergarten education program. And me and Meg are going to be bickering, yada, 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 about whether or not we homeschool the kid or we go to private or put it in public, whatever. I'm having that fight in my mind like 5 years in advance. Just because I can envision these things happening. We have a greenhouse. Hopefully we have somebody who comes and cooks our food for us and picks stuff from the greenhouse, and we grow all our own vegetation. We have our own bees. Hopefully we're buying the word's crunchy now. It used to be granola. We're very crunchy like that.
Yeah.
I can paint a very vivid picture of what the world looks like at that time. But what has always gotten me is if I ask Megan, hey, what does 5 years from now future look like to you? She goes, I don't know. And I always chalked it up in my head. This sounds so rude, but I always chalked it up in my head. I'm like, she just doesn't have the vocabulary, maybe she doesn't
You just used third grade vocabulary to describe
sort of, yeah,
3 to 5 years
mostly
of your life, though. I mean, there was nothing super complex about it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And it's like some people, and either this is innately or they just don't want to or whatever, some people do not think in detail about their future or about a lot of things. Like you said, the name it if you tame it thing, right? They would rather use general terms. What's upsetting you? Everything. Why? Because. Well, how long have you been upset? A really long time. It's like, okay, but communicate, expand give me a 10-word sentence answer to the question.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people have hard times doing that. That's weird to me, but it seems like maybe everybody's capable of it. There's a communication error there.
100% communication error. We may have talked about this before. I find it fascinating that we think high school is the end of when we learn English. We think of English as learning communication too.
Yeah.
It's like that is the most powerful tool that you ever pick up in your life.
Yeah.
You should probably keep learning how to use it as you go on.
Yes.
And part of using it, they describe this for writing books, for writing music. Whenever you first start to really use it or try to expand your use of it, it's not great. It doesn't necessarily sound great or beautiful, and be okay with that, because the reality is that's where you are. And it's like maybe your first idea of saying in 5 years, you're like, well, I'm going to be a billionaire and be having dinner with Elon Musk. And is it probable? I don't know. I don't know you.
Where you say, I have money and live by water. And it's like,
yeah, it's like, there you go. I mean, it's like, but if that's all you get out, at least do that. Move beyond, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. At least start somewhere.
Yeah.
Or the email thing. It's like, how do you get so? How? It's weird that there's people like Steve must be one of them, or like there are all these entrepreneur like tricks that entrepreneurship programs will give you that like help you get your ideas out of your head onto paper, and they ask you questions and like there's like designs to them and all this weird stuff. But the whole idea is to get you to express in more words than I want to solve a problem for them, so that you can, I guess, communicate it better. So all this comes down to a communication problem.
Yeah.
All of it comes down to words. Right now, the best way to solve communication problems with words is to read and write. That's it. That needs an upgrade.
You can practice with yourself.
Exactly.
It's low risk. If
Exactly.
you don't feel great about sharing, your future plans with someone else, write them down at least.
Exactly.
Read them out loud after you write them down. Be like, what does that sound like? Ooh,
Weird.
that doesn't sound possible at all. Maybe you need a rewrite. Maybe you need an edit. Like,
Yeah. We need to think about that. How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
There's a power to journaling, but there really does need to be an update to the way we communicate those things. An update to the communication platform from English to something else.
Communication 4.0.
What is Communication 4.0?
It's using computer systems to complement conversation.
Right now, their conversation's
supplement.
worse than our conversation. They have terrible conversation with chatbots and stuff.
Oh yeah, well, because that's where they're trying to replace our conversation with a computer. I'm saying complement it or supplement it. Like supplement, because the conversations work today. We're trying to go above and beyond. So it'd be a supplementation. Augmented reality is closer to that, where it's like there's some great demos. And they're only demos. They're a little bit hand wavy. They're probably like produced afterwards and not actually functional yet. But HoloLens, for example, by Microsoft, does a great demo where they're talking, and as they speak, it's generating relevant images to what they're talking about. And so it's complementary to what they're speaking. So, for example, if you're trying to goal set and it's generating what your goal is, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to live in this building downtown, and I want to have 4 cars, and I want to have like a putting range inside my place, and all of a sudden it generates this place that's like, it's like the only place where it's possible is a $40 million like mansion or whatever. What are those things called whenever you own like a whole suite?
Penthouse?
Like a penthouse, in New York or something. You're like, okay, maybe that's not what I'm talking about. And then you keep going and it keeps showing you like whatever your words are saying. It's like, then it's supplementing what you say with a visual.
I love that. That's good, actually. That's a lot like journaling. That would be really cool to see, because imagine saying, I feel bad about everything today. What does it show you?
It's going to show you the globe.
So when it doesn't show you anything, or it shows you something just weird, you know that it's almost like an immediate feedback for your own communication purposes. You get to practice your own communication, and you get to say, well, no, I feel bad because this email has to go out in the next 3 hours, and I feel like when I send it, my boss is going to be upset. And then it like starts drawing out an email, your boss yelling at you, and you're like, yeah, that's the image that I'm scared of. That's cool. That's very cool. That ends up being practice more so than communication between people, but everybody needs that practice, I think.
Yeah, and then in like business, the way that I would say they supplement talking is they use whiteboards and sticky notes, and we use presentations. It's like, I can talk to you about what the total available market and the service available market is. No, but let me make this sort of makeshift Venn diagram to show you like how big the subsection is that we're trying to go for the market. And we complement our words with something people can see, because it's like, oh yeah, they just want a little bite out of the apple. And it's like, it says that at the same time that we're only saying service available market, blah, blah, blah.
Sometimes I think of like PowerPoints and stuff like that as not being for the audience, but being for the presenter. in the sense of all you're doing whenever you're making that PowerPoint is you're pulling the words out of your head so that there is a picture. So instead of being like, our market is everyone and we want to sell everything, you have to pull that out and put it onto a PowerPoint so that then it's exactly like the Microsoft thing. It's exactly like the Microsoft thing. Like just you have to do the work rather than AI doing the work.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, there's another one that just hit me about this complimentary deal. Oh, poo. Where'd it go? Lost it. It's gone.
Is there going to be some RAM on this thing so that whenever you have a thought, it'll save it for a second so that you can do as you're talking?
Maybe.
Click back on it.
Maybe. Coming up with visuals for things to help us. Yeah, I don't know.
Help us think through and communicate.
But so I've done some research on this thing before, at least communication, if we want to keep going on that.
Yes.
And I drew a timeline to help show myself as well and everyone else. It starts, I guess I'm going to start on this side for everyone out there. It starts at the very beginning, like first levels of communication or first improvements to life.
This like communication 1.0?
Yeah.
So are you going to go communication 1.0 through 4.0 or something? Is that what you're about to do?
I called it 4.0 because at the time I came up with the theory or the thesis, it was when everyone was talking about industry 4.0. And my idea was like, well, it doesn't matter if all of our technology gets real smart if we can't communicate more effectively because we'll never keep up with it and we'll just be sitting right where we are.
Makes sense.
So we invented tools. And tools did something for us, like really basic tools, like knives and fire. And that helped us live longer. We came up with the most basic forms of like pictographs, emojis now. And those helped convey enough thought or enough ideas to people that then they were able to live longer, avoid more troubles, and they were able to function. Shortly after that, actually it took a really long time. It was like 1,000 years or 2,000 years. Then we developed the calendar and talking and like modern language systems. And then knowledge and the general, I can't remember all the details. I wrote this in like 2018. Then like general education widely expanded. Like up until that point, like most people just didn't even talk.
Yeah.
Like they knew how to like do things and go get their stuff, but they weren't going to be telling you stories and going back and forth like we are. Then everyone had their own ideas about how to use language. And boom, it kind of, there's a pretty big gap right there. The next piece was we invented the computer, which we had like recorders and stuff before that, but I didn't consider that like a consumer-friendly way to store communications or knowledge and then share it out. Came up with that. And then once that one happened, the periods in between our advances got way shorter. So that one took like another like 500 years. And then we came out with the internet, which only happened like 15, 20 years after that. And so now we're communicating across the globe really quickly. But we haven't helped. So the next thing, communication 4.0, was like, how do we communicate here and across the globe any faster than we currently do? And you have to complement the word with something else. Just my theory.
It's interesting. I think I want to start with before computers and make my way up here. A lot of people don't understand this, I don't think. Math is a form of communication. It's a language. Math is a language, just like Chinese, Spanish, English, whatever. It's a language. And it can be learned like a language. And whenever you learn it, you literally learn, like a lot of people look at published papers in physics, chemistry, mathematics, whatever it is, and they look at all the math proof or whatever that's in there and they go, oh, that's scary symbols, weird things. And it's just the same thing as them looking at like a Spanish paper. If you know the language, you look through it and you go, oh yeah, this is the sum from 0 to infinity of this, and as the limit approaches this, then or you integrate over the curve this way, and like you as you read it, you're thinking in your head, just like reading Spanish, what the words are saying as you go, and you get it. You know what it's saying. The computer is like a book. The way a book stores your English communication, the computer stores your mathematical communication. That's all it's doing, right? The ones and zeros just convert the mathematical processes into a.
It's still storing your words.
It's just storing words.
Math. Yeah.
And so the book and the computer were not very different in my mind until the internet happened.
Right.
So the internet happened, and really, it just meant we could share books with each other much faster rather than having to write one down, put it in a package, and send it to you. It was just there instantly. What's instant about it is the fact that the information, the speed at which the book travels, whatever the book is, the computer book travels, is the speed of light. That's what they're doing. They're transferring the information at the speed of light. That's a physical limit. We can't transfer the information back and forth much faster. So we've hit a limit on the speed with which we can transfer stored language. Now we have to optimize the language.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Our output and ingestion of language has not changed since we came up with it.
Nope.
So, highly debatable topic right here, but it's like, it's like the future. Kind of already do it today, I think, with video, more particular in movies. And a lot of people by, I'd say, the internet debates this often. They are always like, oh, the book was better than the movie, or the movie was better than the book. It's like, well, the book also took me 7 hours to read, and the movie took me 2 hours. And they're like, yeah, but it's just not as detailed. It's not as, it doesn't give your mind as much imagination. It's like, no, it was all there. Have you looked at Lord of the Rings? Like, it's all there. Like, just because they said just because it didn't read, his gray hair was flowing in the wind like a giant tall wizard gaping above everybody. It's like, that sentence is 100% derivable from watching that movie.
Yeah. If you pause it and then read the entire paragraph at one section, it's like, it's right there in that 1 second of video.
And I don't know if it's an aversion, if it's a like reverence for books and written words over like visualizing and ingesting them. I don't know what the cause of it is, but that seems to be a challenge.
I do think, I'm not going to say it's all there in the sense of the essence of it is there for the most part. What people are pointing out, I think, is a translation mishap.
Okay.
Like, you say you have a mediocre Welsh Spanish speaker, and they hear the sentence, go to the grocery store, buy 5 bananas, the ones that are extremely ripe, green, or not quite ripe yet, green at the bottom, but mostly yellow at the top. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a complex sentence for them, and they go, oh, I just need to go get some bananas at the store.
Yeah, make sure they're yellow, green.
It works, but it's not the exact translation. Mm. But you're onto something that we've talked about before. We're just expanding out a little bit in more detail, I think, here is, the truth is, the picture worth 1,000 words, like that is just true. That's the efficiency scale.
30,000 words per second.
That's it. That is the efficiency scale, is I think it takes the same amount of time to transfer the picture over space and time. So if you can get the translation from words to picture, if you can nail that, that's where the efficiencies suck. Mm-hmm. Because right now it's humans doing it. That's got to be where communication 4.0 comes in.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And AI is doing that too. I don't know if they're doing it well yet.
No.
So
they're
far,
practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, it's worse than humans.
They're gonna look back on their old versions and be like, "Dang, that sucked."
Wow.
Look at this. We get it now. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Imagine uploading a Lord of the Rings into an AI engine and it pumping out a movie that is let's even say it's less than 2 hours or two
I was
and a
gonna
half
say,
hours.
I bet the
however long it is.
movies, if you let AI do it, would be shorter.
Yeah.
Than we currently make them.
And more detailed. They would be shorter and more effective,
Yeah.
which would be very, very strange to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the future, man. I think that is a future of, communication that we have to look forward to. Because you're at this point, speed's done. The speed of transfer.
Yeah. We don't need any more transfer speed. They're like, we're already working on 6G internet. It's like, don't care.
Yep.
What else are you going to give me?
Exactly. Okay.
Like, I can't take any more in at this point.
It's so true.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
So let's take it back to personal development. Personal development, a skill, great skill to have would be learning how to get more out of each sentence that someone says, or how to produce better pictures with the sentences you use.
yeah. Which starts with, there's a expansion and compression here, which is just for your own self, you need to start to expand your sentences and the things that you say and describe and provide more information. And then distill. For us, this is a long form podcast. So for us, it's like we got to say a lot of words. What would be so awesome is if 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we sit down and we have a 5-minute conversation, and the things that we say in that 5-minute conversation are so dense and provide so much to think about and consider that people are like, wow, that blew my mind. Expand and then distill.
Yeah. Hey, personally develop yourself, work on your communication skills, and get better.
Just be better.
There we go.
Just be better.
All right, done.
So we do have a little bit of time. What else you got?
So here's a communication skill, I think, for yourself and for others, is learning how to always speak in the positive. Speaking to the negative. For example, it was used in marketing today, where Kevin Hart was telling me not to go to fabletics.com and not to go look at the great deals. It's like people literally play games with this on you because they know that even if you say don't do something and not something, that you still focus on whatever is said to not do.
Do you focus on it more, do you think? I think some people do.
Some people might. I just think it makes you focus on it.
Yeah.
Regardless. So
people focus on the negative.
So there's definitely people that focus on the negative. I'd say, I'm not going to split up our population and say they do more of one than the other. But, I mean, whatever comes out of your mouth, the subject is always going to be focused on, not all the accessories you put around it. Mm-hmm. So whether you're saying don't do this or to say do this, it's like
whatever this is the thing that takes the focus.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm gonna be horrible coming up with. It's like, it's so dumb. Would you ever tell kids like don't brush your teeth? I think they'll get the same thing out of telling them to don't brush their teeth as whenever you tell them to brush their teeth. They'll get something very close to the same, like in their brain.
Interesting.
It will distill down the same.
It makes them think about brushing teeth.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Yeah. One I do that's personally, I don't think a lot of people like this one, but whenever I've been asked, oh, did you miss me?
No.
I'm like, I love where I was, and I love that I'm back. And that's the positive of it.
Interesting.
Because to be like, I was without while I was there, whatever I was doing, or I was without by not being at this event, it's kind of weird. Now, if my car broke down on the road and I couldn't make it to the event, and they're like, oh, we missed you, makes sense. Because I missed it too, and I agree with that. But
there's an element of this kind of takes me to like misery loves company in a way, which is like, let's say you speak into the negative there and you say, yeah, I was so sad I missed this, or so sorry I missed this, or whatever it is. You tend to attract to you around the people who are attracted to misery, who are attracted to, oh, I miss out on things too. Oh, I have a hard time too. Oh, I'm sad about things too.
Does anybody want that?
Anybody? Maybe some people like that. I think I'm trying to get a concept for what you mean by speaking to the negative, but if I'm getting it right, the impact of it probably is you end up, your language determines who surrounds you
That
in a way.
Yeah. Also, we could even go back to the personal development where I've asked, actually quite a few people have asked them like, what do you want to do with your life? And most of them say things like, I don't want to be broke. Or I don't want to be fat. I don't want blah, blah, blah. And they talk about the things they don't want. And I'm like, all you're talking about, all the words I heard was like fat or broke or like in trouble. And it's like, I don't want to go to jail again. Dang, jail again. That's all I hear and what you want to do. That's the only subject we actually talked about in that moment. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean, talk about the negative. It's like, find a way to say like, instead of I don't, find whatever is you can say I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's like, if you don't want to go to jail, saying like, I want to live a safe, peaceful life.
Yeah.
Say that.
I want to avoid the police for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I don't know. You're still kind of focused on police.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Huh. I still want to be a great law-abiding citizen. All the time.
I see a fine line here, which is like...
It could be a bit legalistic.
Yeah.
In practice. Yeah.
There's just a line there that's it comes into chance again. Chance comes in here, which is like positioning. Are you familiar with positioning in chess? The concept of positioning?
Nope.
It's a strategy in chess where rather than playing what are called theoretical moves, if you will, like playing I'm doing this opening, which means I have to do this and this and this or whatever. You go with like a general vibe of the board, and generally you want to be like moving king side and attacking king side on their end, and like and so what you do is you position yourself to have moves in the direction that you want to go without having the specifics of what the direction is. And you see this in finance too, where rather than saying I want to have this defined portfolio, this divine portfolio.
If you got it, let me know.
Rather than having this defined portfolio that says 10% in this type of thing, 10% in this type of thing, whatever, you position yourself in a portfolio that has a very low downside, but has unknown upside. And then what you're doing is you're allowing chance to enter the realm. Positioning in chess, positioning in finance. You're positioning yourself so that when chance comes, there's not a lot of negative. It's only positive things that happen. And if you define your life or speak into the negative in this sense, the way you're I guess defining it in my mind is like characterizing things by what they're not is sometimes good because it opens a undefined window for what they are. So if you say, well, I don't want to be fat and I don't want to be broke. Yeah, it definitely has some negative connotation into it, but you're also communicating like, I can be anything as long as I'm not those. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you open yourself up for chance and maybe you don't communicate those things, but in your mind, I think it's okay to have those things because you are just opening yourself up to the possibilities of the world ahead.
True.
Rather than saying, I want to be this and I want to be this. Remember when we talked about our whole like missing the letter from your grandpa to take you overseas because you're so focused on your goals on how to get there? that you miss the opportunities that come to you to make it actually happen. I think you end up falling into that trap if you're too defined on the positives that you want to do.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's different than communicating them, though.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
When I think of speaking to the negatives, and this is something that we had talked about a little bit yesterday, I think of like in sales. And in sales, if you're supposed to have a follow-up email with somebody or a follow-up meeting, and you miss it because whatever reason, you're lazy, you didn't schedule it, whatever it is, you miss it. Your first instinct is to send an email out later that's like, hey, sorry I didn't get back to you when I said I would. Hey, sorry I didn't, set that meeting up like I said I would, whatever it is. And you immediately from the very beginning bring to their mind, oh yeah, he did mess up. Oh yeah, he did do that wrong. Oh yeah, he did miss that.
Yeah.
When in reality, they might not be thinking about it at all. Like it may, you put yourself in such an importance in somebody else's head that you think that your mess up did something to them. And 99% of the time, they didn't think about you or care or worry like it wasn't a thing. And so whenever you speak in that negative, you bring it to light, you shine a light on it. And then the rest of the email doesn't matter because they're like, oh yeah, that's right, he did mess up. I forgot about that, but he did mess up.
Yeah, I'm not going to read this now.
Exactly. Or like, yeah, you're right, maybe I should punish him for that. Maybe I should make him work for it a little harder or whatever it is. And so even though it's the first instinct, it's like the salesman's, the young buck salesman's cardinal sin is putting that in emails. And I see it in emails whenever they come to me too sometimes, and I'm like, poor guy. Poor guy. He doesn't know I didn't care.
Okay. So, two things. First thing, guess you just have to be aware of the context of when you are speaking to the negative. Is what it comes to down to both of them. Because I'm letting everyone know that for my sake, like if all you say is I don't want this around me, I'm like, I can't do anything about what you don't want. If you tell me any direction about what you do want, it's like then we can explore.
True.
Because the only thing I can do about what you don't want is not bring those things.
Avoid that. Yeah, avoid that.
That's all we can do. So if we're talking, having a conversation about like what do you want to do, you gotta give me something. Because if you just say I don't want to sweep floors for the rest of my life, I'm like, all right, you want to clean toilets?
Yes.
You want to take the trash out? You want to count pennies in a bank?
Again, chance.
Yeah.
Chance. What am I going to bring you then?
It's like, so like, help me wrangle it in a little bit. At least in that case, like, understand the things you want to avoid and the negatives. It's like, because that will help, kind of reduce. It's probably easier to name the few things you don't want to do. Yep. Sure, but then it's like also give me a little bit of definition of like,
where do I go?
Where are you going? Where are we going in a conversation? Now, personally and introspectively, definitely label those things. Definitely label
Makes
those
sense.
things in here.
It's a communication game.
But when you're communicating, it's like you got to give me some direction, or else I'm just like, okay,
great.
Don't go to jail.
You don't want to be fat. I will try to not bring you cake.
It's like okay, great. Yeah. On the second one, like you said, the guy who brings a thing to somebody's mind. Oh, lost it too. Great.
That was speaking of the negatives.
Yeah.
Saying sorry I'm late.
Honestly, I just got triggered probably on like people that say the word sorry a lot.
Yeah.
Where are we at here? Let's just do it real quick.
Are you going to play the world's smallest violin or something?
No, it's just, one of my favorite things to still do is look up words I think I already know how to use really well, but I've just used them in contexts, or I've just seen places where they get used and I use it and I'm like, is that really how I feel or what I mean? Sorry. Feeling distress, especially through sympathy with someone else's misfortune. It's like you said, to put yourself at the focus on a sales meeting, to be like, oh, it's such misfortune for them.
Exactly.
That I wasn't there for that.
Exactly. That's it.
Or like if some, like, do you go to the grocery store, do your shopping?
Yes.
Okay. How many times does someone say sorry whenever they go by you in the aisle?
All the time.
Ugh. Are you sorry? You think it's misfortunate that we both have to be in the same place at the same time?
You think it's a misfortune to me? How do you think about yourself that you think it's a misfortune to me that you're here?
So that's one of those minor negative things I think we throw around.
It's very interesting
Way
that
too
you
much in the
do.
world.
Yeah, it is. You think so highly of yourself that you think whatever action you made was a misfortune to the other person.
And it might just be that you don't even pay that much attention, and it's just a response. But it's like, it's what you're saying. Maybe,
what you're
Maybe
communicating.
pay attention to your communication.
It's what you're communicating.
Yeah.
Or what about speaking into the positive, though? So here's an interesting strategy for sales guys that I've never tried. That could be interesting.
Okay.
What if every time you send an email late, you said some positive? Like, hey, loved seeing the Dallas Cowboys win this weekend. Hey, here's this other message. Like, speaking to something positive. Hey, got my teeth cleaned yesterday. Hey, like, you know, like.
I don't know. Gosh, I'm just a hard person to sell to.
Yeah,
is all my mind comes down to. I can see like, hey, I'm really glad to get back to you right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm really glad to touch base on the subject right now. Hey, I'm glad
I think
to
so
revisit
too.
this.
Yeah.
Something like that, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, I think we're both talking about like weigh in on what you're going to bring to someone's attention whenever you reach out to them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that probably relates to the way that you view yourself personal development wise too, which is like, if you're constantly apologizing for being behind or for being inefficient or ineffective, you're almost signaling that you're out of control and not doing things well. Maybe I don't know where I was going with this, other than I don't know about the negative side. I know about the positive side, which is like, if you make it a point to always express something that's gone well or something that's good or a win with every single sales email you send, you do nothing but look at positives around you in your past and positives in the future. It's almost like you force yourself into a good mindset at all times, versus the negative, maybe the opposite. You're constantly thinking about your failings, how you failed this guy and how you failed this guy. And at the end of the day, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care either way.
Yeah. The only thing that failed was like your story about that situation.
I know.
Which then you might focus on that. Now that if I just said that to someone, they could then be like, oh, now I'm failing myself by thinking I'm failing these people. And then
We might have to do the next
Cyclical.
episode on the stories we tell ourselves, because that could be an interesting one that nobody cares about. The stories we tell ourselves and nobody's listening.
I'd have great fun with that. Especially because I'm a firm believer that you can tell a good story about anything.
Yep. That's going to be a good one.
Anything.
All right. We got to wrap this one up.
Cool.
But that'll be a good one on stories.
All right. Let's get out of here. Go get to family stuff.